Welcome aboard the System76 transmission log. Our broadcast is about to begin. This is the latest on System76 computers, manufacturing, and Pop OS. Now for your in-orbit crew.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, Emma. Welcome back to the studio.
Yeah, we're finally back at Coop Studios in Boulder.
Oh, yeah.
I heard you didn't get breakfast either, so you brought a box of cereal.
Yeah, I was eating straight from the box in the car. Save some time.
Yeah.
Got to make it here before recording starts. Otherwise, it's just going to be a one-woman show.
I think it's funny that you eat dry cereal. And
I mean, it's not a typical thing, but I can if I need to eat.
Okay. Yeah, it's not your typical Mickey D's breakfast sandwich that I see you with.
No, that's my on the go. I hail from the Northeast, come from one New York parent, lived there a couple years, and I am partial to a bacon, egg, and cheese.
Okay. All right.
Forget about it.
Let's talk about hardware.
All right, we're talking about hardware.
All right, laptops. We got a powerful lineup that has been updated.
How powerful is it?
So powerful, it could erupt like Mount Etna did today.
Whoa.
That was so timely, but thinking about it, this isn't going to be released today. So
I lava it.
So excited. Okay, so the Serval WS, guys. We told you about it last month, but it is available and ready to order now. And we're still playing with the little crime theme because a lot of us are just so surprised at how criminally fast it is.
We're trying to venture into doing more fun things. We love doing the fun things. We know you guys love it too.
Yeah, anything to make the nerds laugh. The next video is going to be pretty fun for that one, though. So keep an eye on our social for that.
It's an interesting squirt bottle thing going on in that. So the Serval, in case you missed the announcement, it's got a 24-core Intel CPU, NVIDIA RTX 5060 Ti graphics.
5070 Ti graphics.
5070, excuse me, Ti. Up to 96 gigabytes of RAM and 12 terabytes of storage. And it's a 2K display, 16:10 aspect ratio, I believe 240 hertz. So this is a really nice machine. You're going to want to get your hands on this one.
I'm really proud that you just did that with no notes. I'm going to go back and check if that's even accurate.
My notes are writing the website, so I have to have this memorized so I don't have to keep going back and checking my notes.
Okay, I'm going to quiz you on the Bonobo. I'm going to talk about the graphics.
Okay.
But you get to talk about the other stuff.
I mean, the graphics is one of the only differences, I would say.
As far as the update, but you could tell people who are just now hearing about the Bonobo WS for the first time how awesome it is. Because on top of the 18-inch screen, it features NVIDIA RTX 5080 or 5090 GPUs. But what else?
This one is also a 24-core Intel CPU. It is up to 192 gigabytes of RAM. So an insane amount of RAM.
192?
192.
Are you sure?
Positive.
Lies.
It's right there in the specs.
I'm checking it.
You check it.
All right. What else?
So while I'm getting fact-checked, it's up to 12 terabytes of storage. It's a 16:10 aspect ratio and 2K or 4K display. The 2K display is 240 hertz. 4K display is 200 hertz. And if that part isn't correct on the website, I need to fix that still.
Oh my gosh. It is 192 gigabytes of RAM, people, in a laptop.
Insane.
I'm speechless.
It is a wow factor machine right there.
It is. And by the time this comes out, we have one more powerful laptop, but it is not out yet. So maybe it'll be coming out shortly after this podcast releases, or maybe not, maybe a month after. Who knows? But the Adder is our other powerful laptop. And can you tell me some of the updates that we can expect with that little one?
So the Adder is also a 24-core Intel CPU. It is up to 96 gigabytes of RAM, 12 terabytes of storage. And that one will have either a NVIDIA RTX 5050 or 5060 GPU. This one is 1080p. I don't believe it's 1610. Maybe in the next update it will be. But whatever power doesn't go towards powering more pixels on the machine will go towards whatever you're working on. So it's not all is lost on that.
Nice. So sounds like one of the main differences between our powerful laptop lineup is the GPU is what differentiates them. And then
very much, yeah.
And then the Bonobo just blows everything out of the water with twice the amount of RAM and a giant screen and crazy graphics. I mean, they're all pretty epic.
Now, in cosmic news, the engineers are hard at work on making the beta, Emma. There's about 90-ish, as of recording, 90-ish issues for them to tackle. And we're hoping to get that out to you guys soon, get that out to a broader group of people to really experience a feature-complete Cosmic.
Yes, the beta is coming.
Also, by feature-complete, I don't mean we're not planning any more features after that. It's just the main ones are done.
Thank you for explaining
ready for
that.
Testing.
Thank you for explaining that.
Just in case there's any confusion.
Okay.
We've been looking at different ways to update the Cosmic and Pop pages. Now that it's about to hit beta, we got to prepare for the official release. I've always wanted a highlight video for Pop, something that really shows off all the different features, all of what makes it special, what you can do with it. You might see this with something like Windows, where they have a nice animated video that gets you excited about using the operating system. You might be more excited if it's not Windows, which Pop is not. I think it would be really cool to show off on the page, get more and more people excited about Pop, and have an open source takeover.
So one big video?
One big video. No promises. We're still working on the page, but that's my hope.
I like it. How long is that video going to be?
Oh, I mean, how long you got? There's so many features to cover.
It's exactly the answer I was hoping you would say. Open Source Summit is coming to Denver.
Woohoo!
This is one of the largest open source conferences in the world, and it is hosted by the Linux Foundation. And Jeremy and Carl will be doing a Cosmic DE presentation at 1:30 on June 23rd. So we're super excited to share Cosmic with this new group. We haven't attended this one too many times. We're excited to see people's booths and get to know all the nerds that come and see the presentation and share our love for open source. So after that, the fun doesn't stop there. We're going to be doing a happy hour across the street on 16th Street in downtown Denver right after the convention on Monday. We'll have lots of food and drinks and hardware to take a peek at. And, Thalio Astra will be there.
Ooh.
Yes.
It's finally come home to roost.
What?
The Astra.
To roost?
Yeah, it's roosting back in Denver. The Astra has gone around the world, visited many conferences.
Well, not this particular
home.
Astra is going to, this particular Astra is going to be demoing 128 cores, doing something cool. And our friends at Ampere are going to be there to hang out and talk with you guys and connect. So hopefully you guys can make it. It is at 6:00 Monday, June 23rd. If you are local in Denver, you are invited and you can RSVP on meetup.com.
Is it AM or PM?
It's definitely PM.
Okay. It sounds like a conference start time. So I just wanted to clarify for the listeners.
I said it was after the conference concluded on Monday.
Okay. I space out sometimes.
I think it'd be fun though, because Carl and Jeremy are going to do the talk and people are going to be hyped up about Cosmic and have lots of questions and then be like, oh, you make computers too? Be like, yeah, we do. Want to come see them?
It's good timing too, because the downtown Denver, it's been getting a lot of construction since I was living down there. So I think they've been working on it for about 5 years.
When he says a lot, that means $175 million have been put into improving downtown.
Been a huge project.
But it's done now, so that's exciting. So we're going to go down there and show them open source.
Emma, you're interviewing Sreenly today.
I'm actually interviewing Viktor from Sreenly, but yes.
Sreenly is his middle name.
All right, let's get into it. Hey, Viktor, can you tell us a little bit about Sreenly and what you do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm one of the founders of Sreenly. We do digital signage, and that's just a fancy industry term for display management. All these screens you see in airports, in retail shops, and in offices, we have a platform to power or remotely manage those screens at scale. So that's essentially what we do. Started out in the world of open source. Now we're focusing more on secure digital signage geared towards enterprise and developers. So that's what I'm doing, and a really short 30 seconds about what Sreenly is.
Where would we see some of Sreenly's signage right now?
Depends on where you are in the world. We have a pretty large footprint around the world, but you would see a lot of our screens are in retail environments. A lot of our screens are in offices. Depending on what company you work for, there's a good chance you have screens running there, running Sreenly. We have north of 10,000 screens around the world running our software. So there's a pretty good probability that there are screens around you that are running our software stack.
That's cool. What does your Linux journey look like? I know you already mentioned open source, but let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I started my Linux journey back in the mid-90s, back in Slackware. That's kind of like where I started dabbling with the world of Linux, and I never really left. Had a bit of a detour over the FreeBSD and BSD world for a few years, but I eventually kind of settled on Ubuntu. But yeah, started with tinkering with that, traditional like sysadmin style of work, kind of eventually moved on to more DevOpsy when Docker came along, kind of early on Docker, both in screen and out engagement. We were kind of early in that world, and same for Kubernetes. But kind of my very first entry point into Linux was back in Slackware. And that's where my love for Linux started. So it's a long time ago.
Do you remember the version number?
Ooh, you put me on the spot there. Can I say 7 dot something? That sounds, I don't remember the Slackware versions, but whatever came out, I want to say 96 or 97, where you still got like, it's sent with you as part of your Linux magazines on CDs.
Oh my gosh, the Linux format magazines.
Yes.
They actually just stopped printing. Did you hear that? Just like a week ago.
I did not, but it was a funny thing for me that they have covered some, I think it was Linux format that actually had a cover on like Antheus. And it was like, that was like a full circle of, wow,
you're famous now.
Yeah, like very click famous in the Linux world. And that was funny actually seeing that. But yeah, that's sad to hear. I was living in Sweden back then, so I had to order it from the US or the UK because the local press did not have a lot of that. So there's a lot of shipping fees to get your copy of your Linux. I think Red Hat 5.2 is the one I remember having. 5.1 I remember having a hard copy of, at least, like around that era.
So much nicer now with the USB. Just boot up and go.
It's a bit more convenient indeed, yes.
Yeah. Can you walk us through how Sreenly evolved from an open source project, Antheus, that we mentioned, into a commercial product that is used for enterprises today?
Yeah, of course. So for those who are familiar with or not familiar with Antheus, they might know it by a different name, which is used to call Sreenly OSE. That's kind of what we started it out as. The origin story is funny. Me and my co-founder, we ended up basically acquiring a failed digital signage network in Sweden. And we had about 10 screens or so on that network. And as nerds, we looked at it and said, hey, you know what? How hard could it be? It came with some piece of software based on Flash. We're like, that's not going to happen. How hard could it be to write your own software, right? So between Christmas and New Year's of that year, I kind of hacked together a very rough version of what would become the first version of Sreenly OSE or Antheus. And we started building that on, people on this podcast probably remember these guys, like at the Asus EEPCs. Those are like netbooks, and they had like a desktop version of that. They were like this big or so. Kind of like the first, I guess, affordable PCs. So we started building our signage network on that, running Ubuntu, probably 804 or something like that, or 1204 maybe. Oh, 1204, sorry. It was 1204. And we built that for our own needs, really. And then it just so happened that the Raspberry Pi was announced literally like months after we did this. So we looked at what we were paying for our devices, and we were like, the Raspberry Pi can do exactly that for a fraction of the cost. So we were like, all right, that makes sense. So we got busy porting what we have for x86 over to the Raspberry Pi. And bear in mind that this was the very first Raspberry Pi that was waitlisted. So I got my first Raspberry Pi in June of the year. I think it was this must be like 2012, 2013, I think it was something like that. And so we ported it over and we announced it on the Raspberry Pi forum with just a GitHub link saying, hey, we built something. And it just so happened that a fleet of people basically managed to get the Raspberry Pis. And they're like, now what? And so we basically gave them a use case and it just exploded from there. And people just loved it and it grew. I've lost track on how many views that particular forum post has, but it's like a large number of views. And we did this intentionally. We never intended to build a product, let alone a company based on this, because we just solved our own needs really to run our network. And it was about 2 months or so after we published that on GitHub that we had a company reaching out to us from the US saying, hey, what you've done is really cool. We have a fleet of 10,000 ATMs. Can you make this run on these ATMs? Now, that particular deal didn't work out because they wanted to own the IP and whatnot, but we started getting more and more of these requests. And we're like, okay, this is something bigger. So eventually we, due to commercial demand, started seeing more people ask, hey, this is really cool, but I just want to run this for business. I don't want to deal with myself. I want to manage multiple screens. I want to have a larger fleet of these. And that's how our commercial entity was born. So initially, Sreenly, as it's called today, which is different from Antheus, so that's why we broke the names apart. Sreenly was based on Antheus, but now they don't share any code base anymore. But they essentially started from the same foundation, but then grew apart. And now they're two completely different products. And we still support Antheus. We have people working paid full-time to just maintain Antheus. But they are two different products entirely, very much geared toward different audiences. But we still very much support Antheus, and we still very much, I think it's important to our DNA to keep supporting it and doing that. And people love it and people are using it. And yeah, that led us like down the road of building a company, like completely, really, more so than anything. Like we never set out to build a digital signage company. In fact, it's funny because I just met last week at one of the big signage events. I met one of the industry journalists, and he was the one who actually introduced me the concept of digital signage. And I didn't even know that was an industry term until he actually called out, hey, you're doing this. And we're like, oh, I guess we are. The industry existed before us, but he was like, it was not something we even looked at. It just snowballed.
That's cool. Just to go back to the very beginning, I didn't want to interrupt you, but did you say that you worked from Christmas to New Year's? I mean, yeah. Was it a week that you wrote this?
It was it was like 2 weeks or so. Yeah, like Christmas-ish. Like to write, it was very much held together by duct tape. It was basically like a bunch of bash scripts that wrapped around FFmpeg and some interesting Linux commands that I had never used before, like the @ command, for instance, where you could schedule jobs. But yeah, it was basically like literally just a wrapper with a bunch of bash script, FFmpeg, and a few other built-ins. That was the very first version of Antheus.
That's cool. I love it. That's a great story. So great.
Like I think we like SCP'd things in or rsynced things in or as a cron job to see what should be playing and just play something from a folder. Like it worked, but it would be a lie to say that it was bulletproof.
We're really excited about joining forces and having you guys use Meerkats for the Sreenly player MK2. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So this is something that we've been thinking of. So we started with the Raspberry Pi, and then eventually, as we kind of moved up market to more like enterprise customers, they wanted to display more heavy content. And if you display videos and images, that's fine on the Pi. But when you start getting into the heavier content, like heavy web pages and heavy dashboards, that's when the Pi kind of started to struggle. So we introduced our first x86 players about 3 years ago. And that was fine. But when we started to see things like logo fail and pixie fail and these like serious vulnerabilities and biases, that's when we really started to probably want to find a different supplier that we can work with to really lock down our supply chain security. And we bumped into you guys at one of the Ubuntu events, actually. I went by to Carl and Sam over there. And you guys have been for a long time doing Linux desktop, probably longer than anybody else, really. And so familiar with you guys. And we just sparked up a conversation. And it turns out that what's on you guys' roadmap and what's on your guys' radar very much aligned with what we are valuing. And I think supply chain security is one of those things, like particular going down to like fully understanding the firmware. I think very few people in the industry really understands that. Like we talk a lot about core boot, for instance. That's something that didn't make it into this revision of the Sreenly player, but we're hoping that either we can do an over-the-air update with core boot or maybe in the next revision to have core boot. But I think the supply chain landscape and particularly with BIOS and lower level firmware has changed a lot. So we really wanted to find a partner that speaks and sees the world the same as we do and really understand like the lower level impacts of supply chain security and really can help work together with us to provide essentially the world's most secure digital signage player running on Linux. So I think that was like the synergy for us was pretty obvious. And there are not that many people on the planet that really understand that lower level of like, in particular, if you're overlapping, if you do a Venn diagram between people who understand Linux, people who understand hardware, people who understand software, that Venn diagram overlap is very tiny. That's like what we were looking in a partner for the provider for their hardware.
Cool. And what exactly are the Meerkats going to be doing with the Project MK2? Will they be mounted on the back of monitors or?
Yeah, I mean, so it varies a lot, right? Depending on the use case, but a lot of them will be used for enterprise signage. So a lot of them will probably be mounted behind screens or in ceilings or something along those lines, right? Driving big screens. There is dual displays on this one, so that can drive up to 2 screens once we enable that support on our end. But I think that's a lot of them will be sitting in enterprise environments where people really care about security. I think that's the thing that coming back to, we pride ourselves in security on the software side, but we need a hardware counterpart that can worry on the lower level side of that bias and all those firmware parts.
Mm-hmm. So now that you've been doing the commercial side of this for a while, what are some of the interesting ways or surprising ways that people have used Sreenly?
We've seen so many strange use cases, I think, over the years. Maybe not shockingly surprised or strange, but one of the odd ones, we've seen people driving like whole hotels, like the in-store, like the TV when you go into a hotel room that has like an idle screen. Yeah, we've had people using our hardware to drive hotel buildings like that.
Oh my gosh. When I went to the Hilton, when I walked in, it says, "Welcome, Emma." And I was like, that is so creative. And it just had like personal options. I really liked that. So that's something that you can find Sreenly with.
So probably not for those. Those are probably like the Samsung and LG got like custom hotel options for that. But these are more like you're driving like one of the channels might be like, a slideshow of what's available in the region. So more of that kind of stuff. Like we have spoken to customers about having more of those tailored. You could do those tailored things with Sreenly. We have a develop environment called Edge Apps where you could build custom applications that could pull in APIs and so on. So that would be indeed possible to do. So that's one of the custom things we've seen. Art exhibitions, we've seen quite a few. And then in large enterprise, like pulling out feeds to like conference rooms, not super crazy, but that's another one we've seen people using Sreenly for. But yeah, more use cases I think of. Big dashboards, big billboards, definitely seen all of those as well.
Do you have plans to maybe incorporate POS or anything into the signage, or do you already do that? Perhaps
build it into POS system, but rather pulling data from POS system. So one of the things we've been exploring is, imagine that you have a shop and you're using Square for your POS system, right? Imagine a smaller retail environment. Building menu boards based on the data in there is something that we looked at using our Edge App environment. So you could basically build a menu board that is dynamic so that if you're out of, I don't know, maybe you have a smoothie shop, but you're out of strawberry smoothies for whatever reason, you can just automatically remove that from the menu board, right, in real time. So that populates based on what you have in your inventory system. So that's something that we have seen, like we call reactive signage, like it's pulls in live data to render the content so that creates a better user experience rather than just a static image, right?
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Are there any customers you're excited about who use Sreenly's digital signage, or any fun uses for digital signage that you've seen from users?
Yeah, one of the most exciting customer, I guess, we locked down in terms of bragging rights, I guess, is one of our customers is NASA. And I think that was a pretty cool one when we got that. Because it just comes down to they value our security posture and they trust our security. So getting device in there is really challenging. We have a lot of banking customers. Again, much like that in the financial sector, like security is really tight. So having that validation that they trust us is really big for us. And so that's kind of like what we're doubling down on. We have some Fortune 500s as customers as well. Where the procurement process is very rigorous and it takes a lot of time. But once you're in there, like it's a testament to your ability to produce good quality software and high caliber security. So I think those are things we're really proud of, really. Those are compliment. Like we passed our SOC 2 compliance. Not that it changed our security or anything, but it's just a tick box of we're doing security right.
Yeah, that's really cool. That speaks volumes definitely for the quality, especially the NASA thing. That's really awesome. So good job.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to add about Sreenly or the future of the company and where your products are headed?
Yeah, we have shipped a lot of new things in the last 6 months. So we started doing Raspberry Pi. We branched out to x86. We now have an Android app. We have a Tizen app for CVs. We have a web-based version. We have a version for Chrome OS and a bunch of other things we're adding there. So that's something that we are pushing a lot in terms of being available wherever our customers are using us. So that's something we're pushing for a lot. We are going to InfoComm next. I'm not sure when this is going live, but next week from the recording, so I think second week of June, is InfoComm in Florida. We'll be there. We have a booth there, so come check us out if you happen to be at InfoComm. We will be even having some cool System76 swag, I believe, at the booth. So that's something we're there. What else? You should check out our podcast, The Changelog, where we talk about what's new in the world of Sreenly. We're releasing 1 or 2 episodes a month. And I also have a personal podcast called Nerding Up with Viktor, where I will be having Carl on my next episode. So that's going to be fun if you want to deep dive into, I guess you guys covered it on your podcast too, but from my vantage point, exploring the backstory of Carl on how System76 came to be. So that's another hook there, I guess people can check out.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll definitely share that when it comes out for sure.
Yeah, if you're paranoid about security, you should check out Sreenly. That's what we do. We are paranoid about security. We are doing secure by design. We are trying to be the best of the best when it comes to security and actually show that you can do secure digital signage, which is unfortunately the industry out there is still not quite there. You see a lot of end of life Android devices out there, end of life Windows devices out there. Example of poor security, screens being compromised. If you want to avoid that, get in touch with us and we can help you improve your security posture.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today, Viktor.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Let's play a game. Let's see if you can guess something for me.
Platypus.
No.
What am I guessing?
Yeah, I was about to tell you, but you jumped to conclusions. I have a pack of balloons in my car. What color are they?
She's picking the balloons again because that was the only game I've lost. Let's see, what color are they? I feel like you expect me to guess pink, but I'm going to say blue.
Wrong. I stumped you on the balloons again. Green.
I didn't feel stumped.
Yeah, you just got stumped.
No.
Yeah, that was stumped. You hesitated for a solid 15 seconds.
I was thinking, but I wasn't stumped.
That's called procrastinating and excuses for being stumped. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. And we'll see you next time.
3, 2, 1, 0.
This has been the System 76 transmission log. For more inspiration, check out the website and follow us on social media. On your descent back to Earth, please keep your hands and feet inside the transport beam at all times. Captain Sign-Off, in transmission.